On today's show, risk tolerance. I'm Jeremy Fisher. This is The Awakening. I need help becoming risk tolerant. That's the summary of a question we received from Maureen. We talked in previous episodes about the odds not being in favor of someone trying to do creative and interesting work. Even though opportunities in the awakening are growing by the minute, traditional job structures, at least for the next couple decades, have higher odds of stability. We discussed a strategy that might give us better odds. In this episode, we'll talk about minimizing our risk and hedging our bets with asymmetric risk. Maureen says she'd like to quit her job and start a blog, but that seems like a big risk, and she's not sure how to become more risk tolerant. There are a startling number of entrepreneurs, online gurus, and internet marketers that suggest that if you and I are thinking about changing jobs or starting a business, we should burn the bridges and go for it. As Nike says, just do it. The expression burn the bridges is derived from the idea of burning down a bridge after crossing it during a military campaign, leaving no choice but to continue the march, so there's no chance for retreat. It's the idea of no safety net, and for most people, it's the absolute worst decision to make. We know that in the past, if we wanted to start a business, that meant leasing a building, hiring employees, installing equipment, and heaping huge amounts of debt before we ever even make a profit. The risks were extremely high, and a business like that would be nearly impossible to run after we've worked a full day at our day job. 70% of the businesses that start today don't have a physical space or employees, and can be run from 5 to 9 once we've paid the bills with our day job. So why risk burning the bridges? Why risk losing your job and putting all the pressure on your new business idea? When it comes to job changes, interviewers prefer to hire employees that are already employed but looking to make a change. Quitting our job just before a job search might keep us from getting a job that we otherwise would have gotten if we hadn't had a gap in employment. So why do we continue to be beaten with the mantra that burning the bridges is the best way to make a change? Well, the irony is the primary reason for shoveling out this advice is the same reason we shouldn't follow it. That reason is pressure. Burn the bridge advocates believe that if we have no safety net, we'll feel pressure to make sure our job change or business succeeds. We'll be motivated by hunger, so to speak. This so-called pressure is the worst thing for our career change, our blog, and our business. Pressure breeds stress, and stress breeds desperation. Interviewers hate desperate interviewees, and customers hate desperate salespeople. Just think about it. You can smell a desperate salesperson a mile away, and it makes you not want to buy from them. In our business, we'll be tempted to cut corners to get profits faster, which undermines the quality of the product and sets the business up for failure. In our job search, we'll be tempted to take a job that's not a good fit just so we don't have to wonder where our next paycheck's coming from. On our blog, we'll be tempted to push for monetizing before we've built trust with our readers and actually have an audience, which means we might push products we don't really believe in. The risks incurred from burning the bridges are simply too high. So, Maureen, how are you and I to manage the risks associated with a job change or a new venture like starting a blog or a business? Well, the answer may lie in a principle of investing, specifically asymmetric risk. Asymmetric risk describes the risk an investor faces when the gain realized from the move of an underlying asset in one direction is significantly different from the loss incurred from its move in the opposite direction. In other words, investments with asymmetrical risk have a huge upside and an extremely low downside. Billionaire investor Kyle Bass has made millions of dollars from asymmetric risk investments, which includes his purchase of something you probably have in your pocket right now. Kyle asked himself, how can I find an investment that has no risk? His answer? Nickels. According to Kyle Bass, it takes the U.S. government around 10 cents to produce a nickel, and the material that's in the coin is worth 6.8 cents. He concluded that eventually the government has to stop producing these coins because they can't continue making something that costs nearly twice as much as it's worth. Bass makes the point that from day one, the nickels he bought were already worth 36% more than he paid for them, since nickels cost 5 cents but the value is 6.8 cents. And there's no downside, because as long as the U.S. economy exists, a nickel will never be worth less than 5 cents, which is what he paid for them. And when the current version of the nickel eventually stops being produced, these coins will increase in value because of scarcity, which has already happened with the penny. All that has to happen for Bass to make more than 36% is that history has to repeat itself, with scarcity driving coin values higher. But in order for Bass to lose his investment, the U.S. would have to stop using nickels as a currency, which typically would only happen if the U.S. ceased to exist. Now, what can you and I learn from the principle of asymmetric risk? It might be possible to have a huge upside with a minimal downside if we think creatively. When we apply this logic to our careers, the way we view risk changes. If we keep our day jobs and devote our nights and weekends to our new venture, we'll keep the wolves of desperation away from our door and give the time our hustles need to breathe and grow. If our side hustle leads to huge profits and becomes a full-time gig, the upside will prove to be excellent. But if that doesn't happen, we'll still have our day job to pay the bills. Big payoff, minimal risk. If we avoid heaping huge amounts of debt and bootstrap our business slowly, we'll find ourselves making smarter decisions about the money we're spending, since we still have to work a 9-to-5 to earn it. A lot of people go out and get venture capital money for their businesses and then blow it because it's not their money. Trust me, if you worked 9-to-5 to make the money you're about to invest in your business, you're going to be smart about the way you spend that money. So, Maureen, I think you should trust your risk tolerance. It sounds like you've got good instincts, because in your case, the alarms that are going off in your brain are legitimate alarms. Start small and work on your blog part-time. Build an audience and then decide how to make your blog pay the bills later. If the blog takes off and you get a big payoff, great. But if it doesn't, you'll still be able to keep the lights on. The people that push the mantra of burn the bridges are people that are probably desperate themselves because they burned their own bridges. They're trying to push you into a decision to justify their own decision. And that's selfish. We've always been told that big rewards always require big risks. That's not true today in the awakening, especially when we talk about asymmetric risk. And it doesn't have to be true with our lives. If we leverage the tools that we have in today's world of work and think creatively, it's possible to take steps that will lead to a big payoff without risking becoming homeless and being left with nothing but 2 pennies to rub together. At least, that's my 2 cents. That's it for today's show. On the next episode, a quick idea that'll make you money. If opportunity doesn't come knocking, let's build a door.